Welcome to our Middle East briefing show. Today, we're diving into a serious wake-up call from Amnesty International, warning that the global human rights system is under attack from religious, patriarchal, and racist violence. This threat jeopardizes the foundations built after World War II, with conflict zones like Gaza, Sudan, Ukraine, and the DRC seeing increased violence and suffering. The report criticizes the US and other nations for failing to protect human rights, urging renewed international cooperation and reforms. Next up, a fiery accusation from Amnesty: Israel is accused of committing a live-streamed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. The report details the devastating bombings, displacements, and war crimes that have resulted in over 52,000 deaths. The conflict, sparked by Hamas's attack on Israel, has led to a severe humanitarian crisis, with widespread destruction and suffering. Israel denies these allegations, but the international community continues to watch the escalating violence. Finally, regional tensions are heating up as Hezbollah's leader calls on Lebanon's government to do more to stop Israeli attacks. Despite a ceasefire ending a long conflict, Israeli strikes continue in Lebanon, prompting Hezbollah to demand full withdrawal and an end to the strikes. The situation remains fragile, with regional stability hanging in the balance. Meanwhile, in other news, political shifts are happening in Israel, with Security Chief Ronan Bar announcing his resignation amidst internal conflicts. Please continue to watch for more detailed insights. According to WWII, Amnesty International's annual report paints a bleak picture of the state of global human rights, warning that they are under unprecedented threat. Agnes Callamard, the organization's Secretary General, emphasizes that forces driven by religious, patriarchal, and racist motives are actively dismantling the international human rights system established after World War II. The report highlights three critical trends: escalating violence against civilians and minorities in conflict zones like Sudan, Gaza, Ukraine, and the Democratic Republic of Congo, the heightened vulnerability of minorities, including LGBTQ+ individuals, refugees, and dissidents, and the failure of governments, especially historically committed nations like the US, to address these crises effectively. The report also condemns actions such as the US's withdrawal from the UN Human Rights Council and sanctions against the International Criminal Court, viewing them as attacks on international law. Notably, the conflict in Gaza has drawn intense scrutiny, with Amnesty accusing Israel of committing genocide against Palestinians, an assertion that remains controversial and fiercely contested by Israel and some legal experts. The situation in Sudan is also dire, with widespread displacement and violence, prompting calls for an arms embargo and cautious consideration of possible genocide. Meanwhile, Germany faces criticism for tightening immigration controls and increasing the risk of unlawful detention, alongside concerns over excessive police force against protests. Amnesty urges a recommitment to the rules-based human rights order, advocating for respect of international law, reform of the UN Security Council, and collective action to protect human dignity worldwide. The South China Morning Post reports that Amnesty International has accused Israel of committing a live-streamed genocide against Palestinians in Gaza, a charge that Israel vehemently rejects. The organization condemns Israel's actions as deliberately displacing the population and creating a humanitarian catastrophe following the deadly Hamas attacks on October 7, 2023, which resulted in over 1,000 Israeli deaths and the abduction of hostages. Amnesty's report claims that Israel's military operations have caused the deaths of more than 52,000 Palestinians, with millions displaced, homeless, and deprived of essential resources like food, water, and medical care. Agnes Callamard described the conflict as a live-streamed genocide, accusing Israel of targeting entire families, destroying infrastructure, and committing war crimes through indiscriminate and disproportionate attacks. The report further alleges that Israel's actions have led to the forced displacement of approximately 90% of Gaza's population and have engineered an unprecedented humanitarian crisis. Despite widespread protests and international outrage, the global response has been criticized as inadequate, with many governments failing to take decisive action. Amnesty also highlights increasing violence in the West Bank, where Israeli forces and settlers have escalated unlawful killings and attacks, intensifying fears of systemic apartheid. The organization's stark portrayal underscores the profound suffering endured by Palestinians and the international community's failure to intervene effectively, raising urgent questions about accountability and the protection of human rights amid ongoing conflict. BBC reports on the controversy surrounding Belfast-based rap group Kneecap, who issued a public apology after footage surfaced of a concert in November 2023, where one member appeared to advocate violence against members of parliament, MPs, by stating, "The only good Tory is a dead Tory. Kill your local MP." This statement, taken out of context and being evaluated by counter-terrorism authorities, ignited widespread condemnation from political leaders across the UK, including Conservative and Labour figures. The band emphasized their rejection of violence and clarified they do not support organizations like Hamas or Hezbollah, which are banned in the UK, amid calls for their removal from major festivals such as Glastonbury and Glasgow's TRNSMT. The incident has sparked a heated debate about artistic expression versus incitement, with some officials condemning the comments as crossing a line from protest to dangerous rhetoric, while no charges have been filed against the band members. CNN details Israeli security chief Ronan Bar's decision to step down on June 15, amid mounting tensions and internal conflicts within Israel's security apparatus. Bar, who has served as head of Shin Bet, publicly accepted responsibility for the agency's failures during the October 7 attacks, which saw a devastating assault on Israel's southern front. His resignation follows a series of political battles, including a court-ordered freeze on his dismissal after the Israeli cabinet initially voted to remove him, an act that intensified Netanyahu's frustrations. Bar's tenure has been marred by accusations of politicization and investigations into government officials, including Netanyahu himself, leading to a bitter feud with the prime minister. Despite support from opposition figures praising his integrity, Bar's departure underscores ongoing instability within Israel's security leadership amid heightened regional tensions. Al Jazeera reports on Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem's urgent appeal to Lebanon's government to intensify efforts to halt Israeli attacks in the region. Since the ceasefire that ended the 14-month conflict, Israel has continued relentless airstrikes on Lebanese territory, notably striking Beirut's southern suburbs multiple times in recent weeks. Qassem condemned these actions as unjustified and a violation of the ceasefire, urging Lebanese officials to pressure the United States and other sponsors of the truce to intervene and stop the aggression. He emphasized that Hezbollah has fully adhered to the ceasefire, calling for Israel's complete withdrawal from Lebanon and the release of Lebanese detainees held in Israel. The ongoing violence has resulted in significant casualties and destruction, with Lebanese President Joseph Aoun warning of escalating instability, as the region remains fraught with tension and unresolved conflict stemming from the October 2023 hostilities initiated by Hamas and Israel's subsequent military escalation. Amnesty International, as reported by Nikkei Asia, paints a bleak picture of global human rights under the shadow of Donald Trump's presidency. Agnes Callamard, the Secretary General, describes the world as being at a historic juncture, where the ideals of universal human rights are under assault by powerful forces. She criticizes Trump for acting as a super-accelerator, intensifying trends of militarism, economic dominance, and nationalist policies that undermine gender and racial justice. The report highlights alarming violations, including breaches of international law in conflicts like Gaza and Ukraine, repression of dissent, and discrimination against marginalized groups such as Uyghurs and Tibetans in China. It also condemns the erosion of democratic freedoms in Hong Kong and the use of the death penalty in China, warning that authoritarian practices are spreading globally, with Myanmar's ongoing civil war and the Taliban's crackdown in Afghanistan exemplifying the worsening humanitarian crises. South China Morning Post offers an analysis of Trump's perplexing and chaotic approach to China policy, now 100 days into his second term. Despite verbal gestures of friendship towards Xi Jinping, Trump's actions reveal a confrontational stance driven by economic bravado, exemplified by tariffs soaring as high as 245%. His administration's rhetoric frames China as an adversary, accusing it of trying to screw the U.S., while internal disagreements and personnel dismissals reflect a lack of strategic coherence. Trump's approach underestimates China's resilience, as Beijing responds with its own tariffs and diplomatic outreach, rebuilding alliances and asserting its influence across Asia. Meanwhile, Trump's claims of American dominance risk isolating the U.S. internationally, especially with provocative ideas like taking back the Panama Canal, which could escalate tensions over sensitive issues like Taiwan and the South China Sea. Experts warn that without a clear, alliance-driven strategy, the U.S. risks pushing the world toward deeper decoupling, economic instability, and conflict, emphasizing that escalation does not equate to strength. CNN's interview with Trump, as reported, reveals a president grappling with internal chaos and a pragmatic yet flawed outlook on immigration and foreign policy. Trump concedes that nothing will ever be perfect in his aggressive crackdown on illegal immigration, defending the deportation of American citizen children alongside their undocumented mothers, and dismissing concerns about wrongful deportations as inevitable in a world of many layers of decision-making. He discusses his tense interactions with Ukrainian President Zelensky, suggesting he believed Ukraine would be crushed without him, and criticizes Zelensky's behavior during their Oval Office meeting. Trump also reflects on his second term as a period where he runs the country and the world, prioritizing loyalty and control over traditional governance. His dismissive attitude towards media criticism and internal personnel turmoil, including his confidence in Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, reveal a leader who embraces chaos and unpredictability, viewing it as part of his power. This candid insight underscores his belief that even flawed decisions are part of his broader vision to assert American dominance, despite mounting public and international concerns about the stability and morality of his approach. The South China Morning Post reports that the BRICS foreign ministers, representing a diverse and expanding coalition of emerging economies, gathered in Rio de Janeiro to reaffirm their commitment to multilateralism and global peace amid escalating tensions driven by U.S. trade policies. Brazilian Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira emphasized the group's role as a force for good in a fragmented world, advocating for a multipolar international order where security is a universal right. The summit's agenda included criticism of unilateral U.S. trade measures, such as tariffs on Chinese goods, and a focus on promoting local currency trade to reduce dependence on the U.S. dollar, highlighting the group's strategic economic independence. China positioned BRICS as a crucial backbone of cooperation for the Global South, stressing its role in fostering justice, fairness, and a more equitable global governance system. Discussions also touched on urgent geopolitical issues like the violence in Gaza, the Ukraine conflict, and climate finance, with Brazil calling for richer nations to shoulder their climate responsibilities. Notably, India's absence from the summit, due to internal security concerns following a deadly Kashmir attack, underscored regional tensions, especially with China and Pakistan, and hinted at underlying disagreements that could influence the group's future unity. Despite these challenges, the ministers aim to maintain a focus on economic collaboration and global governance reforms, setting the stage for further bilateral talks and a pivotal leadership summit in Rio this July. Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.
Morning coffee, fresh off the press. Reading headlines, feeling blessed. World keeps turning, stories unfold. Every moment news gets told. Flipping channels, clicking tabs. Feeding my mind's hunger grabs. Facts to know. Never stopping, always go. Scrolling, swiping, reading on. Daylight breaks in the dawn. Headlines and headlines, can't get enough.